while he was still a long way off. His father caught sight of him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. The story of the prodigal son is well known to us and is probably among the most beloved teaching stories of the entire Scriptures. It is clear that the Father in this story represents God the Father. How could we not be moved by the witness of such mercy and compassion? If I had to guess, we who know all too well our own faults and weaknesses, deep down inside, want to know that God's love will embrace us in the same way. Since we have heard this story many times, we may think that we have grasped the fullness of the message. There is, however, one aspect of this story that I became aware of only a few years ago. I believe its message is hidden in the phrase, "He ran to his son." What is the significance of the Father running to the Son? Before I answer that, let's remember some of the context. The younger son wanted his share of his inheritance. In other words, he wanted to live as if his father had already died. What an insult! He rejected his father and his family. Furthermore, he squandered and lost all of his inheritance in the way he lived. Then he realized that the pigs he was feeding were better off than he was. He had thoroughly disgraced his father, his family, and the community where he lived. But now, his only recourse was to return to his father, hoping he might be treated like a servant, with no rights of sonship, with nothing to call his own, but at least he would have food and shelter. He knew what awaited him when he returned to the community. Because he disgraced his family and the community, they would certainly perform the kizaza ceremony. Kizaza literally means the cutting off. As he would enter the town, people from the community would come together and smash a large clay pot in front of him and dramatically declare that he is forever cut off from his people. Imagine. Once this ceremony is performed, he would be an outcast, and no one from the community would have anything to do with him. This is where the significance of the Father running to him is revealed. The Father ran to get to the Son before the community could declare him a permanent outcast. We have all recognized, I think, that the story of the prodigal son reveals the tremendous mercy of the Father, who, even after having been disgraced by his Son, is eager to forgive him and receive him back into his home. Now, with the understanding of the Kazaza ceremony, we have a deeper insight into why the Father, a respected patriarch, would act in such an undignified way by pulling up his robe, exposing his legs, and running toward his disgraced Son. Imagine a respected patriarch doing the unthinkable. But it puts it into context, because while he was still off, a long way off, it says, I can only imagine that the Father was hoping against hope that he would see his Son again. And when he caught sight of him a long way off, he said, oh, there he is. I have to get to him before the community kicks him out permanently. And so he just looks foolish, but runs to his Son, runs to him to get to him before the community could declare him a permanent outcast. Not only that, but he also acted quickly to publicly restore him as his Son by putting a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet, and his own robe around him, all symbols of reinstatement. He did this in such haste so as to insulate his Son from the community that was prepared to ostracize him permanently. This insight is tremendously significant in understanding the mind and heart of God. This tells me that the Father's love was such that he could not bear his Son being excluded from the community. Even after all he had done, he couldn't bear the thought of his Son being excluded. I think this gives us an extremely important lesson for today. It seems all too easy for us to be ready to exclude individuals and groups from our fellowship because of what they have done or who they are. Are we inclined to withdraw from people of a different race, or of a different background, or of a different history, or withdraw from people that we don't understand or agree with? Are we so ready to judge others' sins without acknowledging our own sins? Does it seem right that we would, out of hand, reject all refugees who come to our borders when our own families and ancestors sought to find the very same human needs before them? To me, it is crystal clear. God the Father wants no one to be excluded from his family, no one to be excluded from the embrace of his merciful love, regardless of what he's done, or regardless of what he is. If this is the God who is so willing to embrace us, then we can do no less than to follow his example. If we are honest with ourselves, then we must admit that in some ways we are all prodigal sons and daughters. We, all of us, are in need, no less in need of God's mercy than any others of his children. This is a significant aspect to this story that I haven't been fully aware of. God the Father doesn't want anyone to be excluded, and yet we have such an inclination to exclude, to ostracize, to push off, push away, to condemn, to judge. If we are to be embraced by this Father whose love we celebrate every time we gather for Eucharist, then let us remember the message of this story. While he was still a long way off, his Father caught sight of him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him.